But what are you going to do if you actually get it all? What if you get the financing? What if the marketing initiatives work? What if customers want to buy? How are you actually going to execute that?
I can see the whole wide world with these two eyes, and I can be whoever I want to be, 'cause it's my life.
Hi, thanks for tuning in for another episode of Ask Spurrell CPA. Today, as the Edmonton business consultant, we're talking about the business plan operations strategy section. I have Denise here with me again. Denise, do you think it's ever going to stop raining?
I don't know.
No?
We get a day,
One
right?
day,
And
yeah.
then it starts again.
But I guess there's
Well,
the bright side is there's no smoke this year.
well, that's true.
We're not dealing with smoke
and
every day.
My lawn looks great.
Awesome. Grass is green.
Yep,
I guess.
it is, yeah.
So the quote that we have here today, it's a Zig Ziglar quote, and he says, when you stop planning and preparing, you stop winning. And the statistic that we have are 50% of all Canadian businesses will go out of business in the first 5 years. And 29% of these failed business owners will list running out of cash as one of their primary reasons for failure, making running out of cash the second most common reason for business failure. And the story that we have are a lot of business plans we see focus on growth, but don't have a realistic plan to implement the growth initiatives or even, produce that amount of work or revenue once the sales are made. Effectively, they run out of cash. So, Denise, what are the questions that these business owners should be asking so they can assemble an effective business plan operations strategy section?
So do you normally dedicate an entire operations strategy section in a business plan?
Yeah, I think it's worth a section. A lot of business plans are focused on, the actual products that they're doing, and they're focused on growth initiatives that they're doing, and this big over how much financing they're asking. But what are you going to do if you actually get it all? What if you get the financing? What if the marketing initiatives work? What if customers want to buy? How are you actually going to execute that? That's worth a section of the plan. We have very few, not that many sections in our plan, but I think that's one of the ones that's, well worth its while.
Yeah. Do you describe the locations and facilities in the operations strategy section?
Yeah, so let's start, we're talking about an operations strategy section. Let's start talking about the location. How much work can you actually do in that location? How much is that location going to cost you? What square footage do we have in that location? What hours are we going to be open? That all has, effects on the capacity constraints and if actually this thing is actually realistic to do. We want to look and make sure that location and facilities is actually appropriate for the numbers that we're going to project.
Do you describe the equipment and software in the operations strategy section?
Yeah, a lot of times that equipment and software is going to contribute to the margins that we're projecting. We're only able to attain those margins because we have specialized equipment or specialized software. Sometimes we're banking that the customer is going to buy from us on the basis of our equipment and software, which help differentiate us from our competitors. So let's start describing exactly what that equipment and what that software actually does for the business and how much potentially it's going to cost. So,
will facilities and equipment often dictate the revenue capacity of the business?
Yeah, it's a big one. We have these. There's only a certain amount of work that you can do in that business, and we want to make sure it's actually possible at that facility, at that location. Sometimes if not, we have to develop out that location or we have to switch to another location. If that's the case, we got to have realistic timelines on that.
Will you describe the productions process in the operations strategy section?
Yeah, so let's actually walk through how we're going to produce that product or service, because we have to make sure we're writing this for someone who's not in your industry. First of all, you're writing it for us so we can do a reasonable projection on it. We've seen other items produced in other industries or maybe similar industries. We have to make sure we understand how you're producing the product or service. If that's actually realistic in terms of who you have on your team, work that you can do yourself or work that you're going to have to hire other people to do. And then we have to explain it a lot of times to a bank who has no knowledge at all about your industry. So we want to write out that production, process that it's, easy to read for anybody not in your industry and starts to make intuitive sense.
What is the milestones section of the operation strategy section?
So the milestones, now we start, we said we're going to do all of these things in this business plan. We're going to find this new space, and we're going to launch this new website, and we're going to get this new funding. We're going to hire these new people. But now the milestone section, it started to establish dates on major milestones. So these are things that happen outside of the course of your business. So, you have your estimates, and you have your estimates scheduled at certain times, your times to see patients at certain times, or even your times to follow up on pending contracts at certain times. But what about launching that new website? What about taking the time to invest in that YouTube channel that you need to do? What about finding that new staff member that you want to hire on, or you want to find a new location, or find an architect to develop the new location? Mm-hmm. All of those major milestones, those are the dates. So you don't just want to establish what those milestones are. A lot of times the milestones are already in the business plan. We've already said we're going to do this, but now that milestone section is about establishing realistic dates of when we can actually accomplish those milestones.
Will specific milestones normally change the financial projections at that point?
Yeah. So now when we put those in order, we have to say, hey, we want to build out a new facility, and step one might be to find the architect to design it, and then step two might be to find search locations that will be acceptable, and then step three is get the lease enacted, and step four is actually build it out. So that means, the actual costs of building it out and paying the loan aren't still step four. So the financial projections at that point in time will change. So establishing realistic dates on it, make sure that we have the changes in the financial projections, that those are reflected at that moment in time. And that way we're more likely to have realistic financial projections that take into account these major milestones or these major changes that are taking place in the business.
How many major milestones per month do you plan on?
I like to plan on one major milestone per month. And I've tried different metrics.
Yeah.
I've tried overloading business plans with, 2 milestones per month, or being really precise about dates on when it comes, and I find that it's more speculative than necessary. And businesses have a lot going on. They tend to absolutely underestimate how much of a time draw their ordinary operations are on their time. So when we talk about doing stuff, major milestones, new websites, new locations, buying new equipment, hiring new staff members, they take a significant portion of time. So hitting these major milestones, I like to put one per month. I think it really keeps the business owner on track. In this month, if I want to get here, and this month I have to do this, on the next month I have to do that, on the next month I have to do that. And if they go quicker, great. They knock out all those 12 major milestones, but I think one per month is a good place to start in a regular business plan. And if you knock them out, hey, restart the planning process again if you want. But trying to overwhelm yourself, I think, is a recipe for disaster and overwhelmment.
Yeah. Does mapping major milestones month by month set realistic timelines?
I think so. It just some business owners can move quicker than others, and some they just have different capacities and different efficiencies, and they might be really good at certain milestones. Maybe they're really good at hiring new people, but they're really bad at securing a new lease premise and designing that lease premise. So I think that month by month, those major milestones, it tends to give most small business owners realistic timelines, right? And it's really a way for to tether it and to show what you can accomplish in this amount of time versus what you can't accomplish. And the line that we always revert back to is the majority of all business owners, they're going to completely overestimate what they can do in 1 year.
Yeah.
But they're going to completely underestimate what they could do in 10. If you kept knocking out one of those major milestones every month for 10 years, what you're going to accomplish would be extraordinary, right? But a lot of people think, hey, we're going to design the place and find the space and get it built out in 2 months, and they just 6 months later they're just barely ready to open, as opposed to if they were realistic about it, now they finish it and now they keep going. And they keep on that path, right?
Yeah, that's right. Should the production process description be understandable to anyone?
Yeah, I think that production process should be understandable to anyone. First of all, it's going to help your accounting department really understand it, because a lot of times, the people in your accounting department, they're not from your trade. So they need to understand it deeply so they can make sure that they can give you realistic projections based on that production plan that you have. And then, of course, if it's going for an external financer, a lot of times that external financer is just not going to finance the deal if they don't understand how you're delivering that product or service. What happens at what times and when people get billed,
That's right.
when money's coming through the door. So I think that's really important to describe it. This isn't a training manual for someone in your profession. This is an explanation for someone outside of your profession in that describing the production processes. So I think that's what we have here today. As always, please hit that like and subscribe button so we can continue to deliver you tips on how to beat the odds at business. And as always, if you have any comments or queries, please leave them below. We'll respond back and use your input for future videos. Thanks very much.